Most people think manipulation looks obvious: aggressive behavior, lies, control. But the most dangerous manipulators rarely raise their voice. They don't force you, they guide you, quietly. And the disturbing part is, highly intelligent people often manipulate others in ways that feel completely natural. You think you're making your own decisions, but sometimes your emotions are being carefully engineered behind the scenes. And once you understand the psychology behind this, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In relationships, at work, among friends, even inside your own family. Because smart manipulation doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like charm, calmness, empathy, confidence. But underneath it, there's often psychological control happening in silence. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the subtle tactics intelligent people use to influence your mind without you even realizing it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming manipulation only comes from bad people. That's not true. Some of the smartest manipulators are respected, successful, liked by everyone, because intelligence makes manipulation more sophisticated, and sophisticated manipulation feels invisible. For example, have you ever met someone who always seems calm during conflict? At first, it feels emotionally mature, but over time, you notice something strange. You always end up apologizing, even when they hurt you. That's not an accident. That's psychological framing. Intelligent manipulators know that whoever controls the emotional frame controls the interaction. So instead of reacting emotionally, they stay calm while subtly making you feel irrational. And suddenly, you begin doubting your own emotions. This is where manipulation becomes dangerous. Because the smartest manipulators don't attack your mind directly. They slowly reshape your perception of reality, one conversation at a time, one emotional reaction at a time, and most people never notice it happening. Another tactic highly intelligent people use is selective validation. This one is extremely powerful. Here's how it works. They give you attention, approval, or emotional warmth, but inconsistently. Sometimes they make you feel deeply understood. Other times they become distant, cold, unreadable, emotionally unavailable, and your brain starts chasing their validation. Why? Because inconsistent rewards create emotional addiction. Psychologists discovered that unpredictable emotional rewards activate dopamine systems more intensely than constant rewards. It's the same psychological mechanism behind gambling addiction. You never know when the emotional reward is coming again, so you keep chasing it. And this is why some people become emotionally obsessed with manipulative individuals. Not because the connection feels safe, because the uncertainty becomes psychologically addictive. But the strangest part is, many intelligent manipulators don't even realize they're doing this consciously. For some people, manipulation becomes a survival strategy. Especially people who learned early in life that emotional control creates safety. And this leads to one of the darkest forms of manipulation: emotional mirroring. At first, it feels magical. You meet someone and suddenly it feels like they understand everything about you. Your humor, your pain, your goals, your insecurities. It feels rare, almost perfect. But sometimes, they're not connecting naturally. They're studying you. Smart manipulators observe carefully. They mirror your speech patterns, your emotional energy, your beliefs, your interests, because familiarity creates trust. And the human brain naturally trusts people who seem similar to us. This is called the similarity bias. We unconsciously feel safer around people who reflect our identity back to us. And skilled manipulators use this to accelerate emotional closeness. Fast. Sometimes too fast. That's why emotionally intelligent people pay attention to pacing. Real connection develops gradually. Manipulative attachment often feels intense immediately. And this is where things become even more dangerous, because intelligent manipulators rarely use obvious lies. They use implication, small suggestions, tiny emotional nudges, subtle guilt, strategic silence. For example, instead of saying, "You're selfish," they say, "I guess I just care about people more deeply than most do." Now suddenly, You feel selfish without being directly accused. That's psychological suggestion. And smart people use it because indirect influence bypasses resistance. The brain accepts suggestions more easily when they feel self-generated. In other words, the most powerful manipulation happens when people think the thought was their own. And once you notice this, you'll start hearing manipulation hidden inside ordinary conversations, especially in emotionally charged relationships. But there's one manipulation tactic that silently destroys more confidence than almost anything else. Intelligent people know how to weaponize uncertainty. Sometimes they intentionally become emotionally hard to read, not fully rejecting you, not fully reassuring you, just enough ambiguity to keep you emotionally unstable. Because uncertainty creates obsession. The human brain hates unfinished emotional patterns. We crave closure, answers, certainty, clarity, and manipulative people exploit this psychological weakness constantly. That's why emotionally unavailable individuals often appear strangely attractive. Your brain becomes trapped trying to solve the emotional puzzle, and what started as attraction slowly becomes emotional dependency. But here's the truth most people avoid hearing. Manipulation only works long-term when someone deeply needs validation. That's the hidden vulnerability. People who strongly depend on approval, attention, or emotional reassurance are easier to psychologically control, because manipulators always study emotional needs first. They look for insecurity, loneliness, fear of abandonment, low self-worth, and once they identify the emotional gap, they position themselves as the solution. At first, it feels comforting. Then slowly, it becomes controlling. And this is why self-awareness is psychologically powerful. The more emotionally secure you become, the harder you are to manipulate. Because manipulation feeds on emotional dependency. But emotionally grounded people respond differently. They notice inconsistencies faster. They don't panic when someone withdraws emotionally. They don't chase mixed signals. They don't abandon logic for emotional validation. And that changes everything. Because manipulators lose power when emotional reactions disappear. The moment someone can no longer emotionally control you, their influence weakens immediately. And this reveals the biggest secret about manipulation. Real psychological power does not come from controlling others. It comes from controlling yourself, your emotions, your reactions, your need for validation. Because once you master those things, manipulation becomes much easier to detect. You stop confusing intensity with connection. You stop mistaking charm for character. You stop giving emotional access to people who weaponize psychology against you. And suddenly, you start seeing human behavior very differently. So the next time someone feels almost too charming, too calculated, too emotionally perfect, pay attention carefully. Because intelligent manipulation rarely arrives with warning signs. It arrives disguised as understanding. And sometimes, the smartest person in the room is also the one quietly controlling it. If this video changed the way you see human behavior, subscribe to Psychology Unlocked for more deep psychological insights, and comment below. Have you ever realized too late that someone was manipulating you psychologically?